So Dougie, before we basically get on, I basically want to ask you where you basically come from. So, in a drumming aspect, where did you basically first learn the drums and how did you come to it?
Wow, which question would you like me to answer first?
Well, how did you come to play the drums?
Oh, well, I'll tell you where I'm from.
Okay.
But it doesn't hurt so much now.
No.
I'm from Yorkshire.
Well done.
Yes.
Yeah.
I escaped when I was 21. Right?
Yeah.
I went to London.
Yeah.
Overnight. I was only 4 times as much as I was in the factory a few days earlier. But this was after I'd started to play drums, of course.
So how did you get to play drums?
Good question. I started to play drums when I was a late starter, actually, Matt. I didn't start till I was nearly 18. And I'd been watching drummers in bands play jazz concerts, you know? Jazz was the thing in the mid-50s, I'm talking about, 1954, 55. I used to go to Leeds Town Hall and watch drummers in bands there. Traditional jazz was the popular music of the day, really. Mm. There was no rock groups and things like rock hadn't arrived. And, well, it had in America, but it hadn't arrived here. And I was watching these drummers and I thought, well, I think I might be able to do a couple of those rhythms, what these guys do. And so I took up my pocket money and I went to a local music shop, which is a thing of the past now, of course, almost. And I bought a second-hand snare drum, which was dated inside 1924, single tension snare drum. And it was a Hawks and Sons,
yeah,
before they amalgamated, Boozy and Hawks. And of course, I bought a pair of brushes, which brushwork was the thing, because music hadn't gained so many decibels as it has now. A pair of second-hand sticks I sent away to Boozy and Hawks, or Boozy and Hawks arrived at that time, of course, and 1 and 6pence. Now, how much is that in modern day? 1 and 6pence. 1 shilling and 6. Chris, you know, just do
7.5p.
7. Yeah, I still have them. They're in mint condition. I've never used them because I like something more flashy, and I bought something more flashy at the local music shop again, which was a bit more expensive, but they were also a bit lighter for me to use because I'm only a small guy, you know. I'm underweight and I don't have a big bone structure, not like you. Look at your handsome big arms you've got, man. You're a weight trainer.
So, now do I yoga?
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yes, I do as well. It's nice following you.
Yeah,
Yes. So that's how I started. And then I got some lessons at a local music shop, Kitchens of Leeds. And I went to see the drum teacher there in the drum basement. And his name was Alec Sidebottom.
Can I stop you there a second? This is your life.
Go on then.
Alex Branson's over there.
Oh, I think, didn't you try to get in touch with me a long time ago?
I may have done, yeah.
Blimey. Heavens. We must talk, don't go away. All right. And Alec used to be like, oh, I've changed my name. I want to be more posh, you know. A handlebar moustache he had.
He did.
And I said, why do you go to the pub? He said, well, I'll keep this moustache, but for 3 or 4 hours later I can still taste the beer with the moustache. And he said, my name's Alex Sidebottom. Sidebottom, not Sidebottom. So they stuck. But there were a few characters at Kitchens in Leeds, I can tell you, the music shop. That's where all the bands at Leeds Mecca Locarno, the local dance band in central Leeds, dance place, they used to go at the breaks, in the band breaks, you know, between sets. They used to go in the pub in King Edward, and the Kitchens music staff used to go in there as well during the day. So it was a popular place. Now, that's how I started really, with Alec. Alec showed me the basics and taught me how to get around the music scene, the drum music thing. But previous to that, years before I'd left school, I left at 15, I'd been spending 2 or 3 years on piano with a local music teacher, piano teacher. And when Alec brought out this drum music, it related to my piano music, with the triplet form and things like that. I could figure it out for myself from my previous piano studies. So I thought, this is going to be good. I'm enjoying this. I can read piano music and I can read drum music now. I'm speaking the language, which is written in Italian, of course, isn't it? In the Italian language. Yeah. Right. So now where do we go from here?
Well, we carry on. So from basically your early doors when you've had your lessons there, how long was it before you actually went into the profession?
Right. Well, I was fortunate because the Shearers in Leeds, it became a big company actually. They had a drum shop, I think, in Leeds. They had a tatty old shop just off North Street. It was a Victorian shop with all the cobwebs were still from Victoria's day, I think, really. And I used to go in there. It was like an Aladdin's cave with drum bits and pieces everywhere. Fascinating. You would have loved it, actually. And of course, this is where I got my first snare drum from. And but the thing is, it was a wonderful place to be. And what was the question again?
How long does it take to get to the profession?
I got this Alec. It was an Alec in Shearers as well in Leeds. So there's two Alecs, Alec City Baton and Alec Swain in Leeds, in Shearers. And Alec said, you want a job with the band? I said, well, yeah. He said, there's a guy called Frank Young. He's a tenor saxophone player, or he owns a tenor saxophone. And he's got a band, he's looking for a drummer. He said, do you want me to give you your phone? Oh, I didn't have a phone. Your address, what have you. I said, yeah, all right, okay, fine. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I went to see Frank Young in a pub in Leeds. All the best people start in pubs, you know. And I went in and I saw him and I got the job. He didn't even ask me how I played or anything. But it was all reading. It was a reading band, even though it was a tatty semi-pro dance band. All the guys in it were reading music. And that's where my drum music thing started, via Alec and my former music teacher at school, well not school, around the corner, called Mrs. Morton, not Mrs. Merton. But the thing is, it was 3 years then, after that, I've been doing dance dates with different places because my reputation was kind of building. And people were coming around, we couldn't afford a telephone, because people didn't have phones in those days in their houses. Coming out, can you do a gig for us? This like, you know what it's like. Your reputation builds, you go from strength to strength. And, but I was still working at the factory from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening, a tailoring factory. I was learning to be a tailor's cutter. And one morning I got a phone call. I didn't like me taking phone calls, you know, in the office down below. There's a phone call for you. What we said? Oh, right, okay, I'll be down. Bam, boom, straight down. Voice at the other end said, Jim here. Do you want to join us in a band? I said, oh, right. Jim was, I'm still in touch with Jim. I'm going to see him again this year. He lives in Spain. Jim was the baritone stroke flute player in the John Barry 7. Maybe you've not heard of it. Some of you may have. This is why Pete's here this evening. Where are you, Pete?
Wow.
Yeah. With all these books. It's about the story of the band that I joined in 1958, late 58, via my good friend Jim, who I played in a big band with, a big swing band in Leeds, when I was 20. And we were all reading Stan Kenton arrangements, written down. Stan Kenton arrangements. The young band, young big band. Yes, it was like a predecessor to my tune, if you like, or young kids. But we didn't have the backing that the people have got now. It was a do-it-yourself thing, like most things were. And I went to see John Barry himself in Leeds. We had a drink at the Metropole Hotel, just off City Square in Leeds. And I got the job via hearsay, you know, word of mouth, reputation again. By Jim, my good friend. So I joined the 7. I quit the factory. I joined the 7 last week in October '58 for a week's rehearsals. And my first pro gig was with Marty Wilde at the Theatre Royal Norwich in 1950. First week in November '59, and that became the start of my professional career then. After doing 3 years semi-professionally round Leeds from the area.
Fantastic. So obviously that leads us to John Barry and the John Barry Seven. So you were one of the early John Barry Sevens?
I wasn't in the original 7. The original 7 were all national servicemen in Cyprus.
Just for the people who actually don't know John Barry Seven, can you just describe basically what the band was?
Well, the band, it was an instrumental band, 7-piece. John Barry was the leader, trumpet leader, and the trumpet, well, he owned the trumpet. And we had a guitar, lead guitar, rhythm guitar, bass guitar, drums, tenor saxophone, baritone saxophone, flute, and flute. Doubling all that, of course. And 7 people. All these guys had come up the dance band route, reading music. They could all play jazz things, they could all play pop things, as they used to be called, popular things. But you put a piece of music up in front of them and they'd read it without looking at it previously. They'd sight read it, everything. And this is why we were classed as I suppose really the #1 young backing small band in the country, you know, who could back anybody. In fact, it proved that it was a great start for my career as a backing musician. And that's all I am. That's all I am. I'm no more than a backing musician. But I've done very well with it.
Yeah, well,
I'm here with you now.
It's 2 weeks to me, probably, yeah. So obviously you were in there for how many years?
Well, I was there for almost 4 years. But during that 4-year time period, it was very interesting. Summer of '59 kicked it all off. We've been doing one-night stands around the country. Finished off doing one-night stands around the country, if I remember. With people like Russ Conway, the King Brothers, Dave Allen, Larry Grayson, Des O'Connor, all these people were coming up at that time. And but some of the singers became quite famous. One guy with that was a man called Jerry Dorsey. Anybody who know who? Did he turn into who?
Engelbert.
He turned into Engelbert, didn't he? Yes, that's right. Yeah, and of course it was great because he was as thin as one of those drumsticks that time, that guy. He was a dead ringer for Jerry Lewis, the Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, you know, the comedian. And but he used to do a thing in those days. This is 1959, late 58, 59, early 59 rather. He was doing a thing called a twist, years before Chubby Checker did it as well. But it was a fascinating time because you'd meet all kinds of musicians, and here again, your reputation starts to blossom through this connection. And it was great, and I enjoyed it, and I was seeing the country and being paid for it. It was wonderful.
So, obviously you had a cracking time.
Yes, yes.
Well, what was the reason for leaving John Barry Seven?
Do I have to answer that?
Yes, I'll ask the question.
Well, I won't tell you in so many words what happened. But I left under a cloud, let's put it that way. But no, during that time, I enjoyed my time with the Seven. Because 1959 we did Drum Beats, which went for 6 months, live television. Oh, that's a scary moment when millions tune in to watch you. And if you make a mistake, it's gone down for posterity. That went for 6 months. 1960 we did the Royal Command performance with Brother Madge. And it was all black and white television. And we all had to wear top hat and tails. I looked like a penguin. And top of the bill, Nat King Cole, Liberace, and Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
And joint top. We were supporting these people. Us and the Shadows. We were all together as the young lions of the 60s period, you know. And it was a great time. And it went from strength. We did the summer season in 1960 as well. 1961, 62, it began to fade a little bit. And then we were being given stuff which was never formalised. It never materialised in the first place. It just to keep us happy. So I was putting dates in the book and they never existed. But I met a lot of good people, lovely people, who I'm still in touch with as well now. But I left under a cloud. in '62, and I brought some diaries with me. I brought my 1962 diary with me. You've seen it a little bit.
Yeah.
And it says, it tells you when I left the John Barry Second, and I was out of work. I went down Archer Street, which is like a job centre for musicians, and swapping gigs. I got some gigs via Dave Allen, the comic of all things, because I walked into the pub. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I left for 7." He said, "Well," and Art Morgan, the drummer, said, "There's a guy over there giving dates out. Go and get yourself some gigs. Put them in your book." It saved my bacon, as it were. So from then on, I did a lot of gigs in London, and then I heard about the Ted Taylor job at the nightclub, which I went into then, and I was doing vocals from then on as well, singing and vocals as well. So if you can sing and play, there's another feather in your cap as well. And then of course, is it still there?
No, it's not.
Somebody's nicked it. And then '65, I left the nightclub. I went into sessions formally with the invitation of Charlie Katz, the godfather of fixers.
So that basically brings me on to obviously your London years. So the contacts obviously you just said with Charlie and everything else. Is that one guy you worked with, or was there many kind of?
There was a lot of fixers. Charlie Katz was deemed the #1 fixer at that time. Harry Benson, Fred Alexander, Alec Furman, David Katz, no relation to Charlie, Johnny Flanagan, who booked for John Dankworth. There were Sonia Duval. She was the only lady fixer. She's still around, of course. Sonia's still around. And a number of people tried their hand at fixing. If you couldn't play anything, you'd become a fixer, in other words. Try and make money that way, booking musicians on behalf of whoever, whichever company wanted it, record company or whatever. So,
in London, obviously you worked with these guys. Can you remember your first session? Who was it with?
Yes, it was with Tony Hatch. As a freelance.
Yeah.
Your worldwide studios. And but my first series, which I bought my house from, my first house was Ready Steady Go.
Not Ready Steady Cook. That's just
no, I'm still learning that. Ready Steady Go, and I did that for about a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like that. And that was a great band, because we backed Diana Ross and the Supremes and everybody on that show. Knockout show.
Yeah. So you can still see all that if you look on the internet.
Yes, I think it's still there.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah,
crank stuff. So that comes to the question: is why do you think that people kept booking you for sessions?
I think it's one of the strongest points. Well, there are a few strong points you have to observe.
Yeah.
First, you have to be a damn good reader. Secondly, you have to be a damn good player, technician, that is.
Yeah.
Third, you have to be compatible with other people. In other words, you might meet a group of people you've never seen before, but suddenly you're good mates, and you're making a hit record together, and that's a bond in itself. And you have to get to the places on time, whatever the traffic's like. You've got to get there.
Yeah.
You set your kit up. Even if it means running back a couple of miles to the studio, you've got to start on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time and money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I remember you saying to me, and this, I think this basically comes back to what I was saying first time. It's like you play open-handedly, and I think you said to me that you curated your own kind of sound because with a floor tom as a snare.
I used to use. I got this idea from Sonny Payne.
Can you demonstrate?
With the basic band.
Can you demonstrate it for us?
Do you think I should?
Oh, you did. I think you should.
All right.
But you got me down for it.
Now's the time to leave. No, it's, you may have, well, I mean, Harry's got some sounds there. Do you want to kick in a sound, Harry? Wait a minute, just a sec. I'll give you the track. We're jumping in quite a way. Since Matt's asked me about this, track 4, please.
Please lock me away and don't allow the day here inside where I hide with my love. lonely.
World Without Love, Lennon and McCartney song, Peter and Gordon. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Now, with me playing this way, it gives me the opportunity to double up the bass drum with the floor tom. It's a bit boomy. By the way, this is the kit I used on that record, and all the records up there. That's all I was doing. Because if you get too technical, the producer will stop you and say, I don't like that, it's not going to sell. Too jazzy. Keep it simple. Okay, cut out the drum breaks. So all the drum breaks were on that record were this. That's all they were. Went to #1 here, went to #1 in America. I got £7 for it. And that's plenty. It's all right for you, Gary. Sat that back there being a producer. They're just like what they used to do, sit back there in the dark, twiddling knobs and dictating. Right, now Matt, do you want to come around there again?
Just stay there for a bit.
Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Is there something that you can demonstrate, or maybe we can hear as well, that,
I've got another thing.
well done, is that for the gym? Sure. That basically you say, well, this is definitely me. You know, this is my kind of sound, my kind of playing. So we can, because sometimes you listen to a drummer, you can go, oh, that's such and such. We can hear that. We know when he's playing, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's difficult. Even for me to recognise different drummers on. I can recognise certain drum breaks, but when they're playing time, I can't recognise who's playing that.
Yeah.
From one from another. But Guy Fletcher, in his drunken stupor a few years ago, he leant over me in London, the first time I've seen him for ages. He leant over and he said, Dougie, he said, you played the best backbeat in the business. Now the backbeat, what is your backbeat? Anybody know? It's the second and fourth of the bar. 1, 3, 1, 3, second and fourth. Yeah? So I played it not like that. I could have done, but positioning, I've got any room. So I can't, Buddy Rich used to do it. Oh, I can't do that. I told you I wouldn't do a Buddy Rich for you. I can't do it. So, and also, I'm a right-hander. I've been signing books for Jeff tonight, not Jeff, Pete tonight, and I'm using that, and that can wallop. That's heavy, but I can use that because I think I do remember my mother saying when I was small, I used to write with this, but it wasn't fashionable in the 1940s. So they swapped the pen, put it in this hand. You've got to write like that. So I think my brain's thinking I'm a left-hander, but my body is saying, no, you're a right-hander. So I'm happy working the way I work, and I get the results. And if you get the results, you've got the gig again.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would some people actually would say, well, you play that way, but you say because obviously you can't cross over on the hi-hat. Why didn't you put your hi-hat up?
Because it's going to get in the way for me doing this. Now I showed that to Jim Chapin many years ago. I said, there's a practice pad between us. We were both on drum stool.
Yeah.
And I said, have you seen that before, Jim? He said, no, not with anybody. And that I've been doing for 40 years, and the rest. So that's become part of my
Signature.
stamp, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way. You see, I've always played that way, but I can play. That's the way you play. Or most drummers, right-handed drummers. Yeah? And I can play if I want to, but I'm not as comfortable in that.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
With my brushwork, which it's not. Oh, I've got my bicycle clip here. My bike's outside. Look at that. But I can't find the other brush. Here we are. When I was listening, I didn't listen to. There was no such thing as rock and roll when I started. It was all jazz. But I've been listening also to jukeboxes in Blackpool on the promenade. And on the piers in Blackpool. And who should be on but a band called Jerry Mulligan, the Jerry Mulligan Quartet. That's what the guy was playing. And Max Roach, all the guys that Gary knows, you know, I listened to them right the way through the 60s, from the 50s, because the Max Roach Clifford Brown thing was my baby, bebop. I'd latched onto this modern jazz way of playing. But my roots are in jazz, but my reputation is in pop. That's the difference as well.
Dougie, can I just ask, when you, I talked about this before with you, when you worked with Adam Faith, and you used brushes.
Yes.
A lot of the early stuff. Was that your? Did you sort of suggest that, or was it you sort of asked to play with brushes?
No, John Barry was the musical director.
Right.
So, and he wrote it for brushwork.
Right. Okay.
My part was designated brushes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well done.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy days. I'm going to enjoy the weekend. It's going to get in the garden. I don't practice anymore. Only talking to him. Is that right?
Practice talking. Yeah. Your flowers are massive as you talked.
Oh, what?
Don't worry. So on all these sessions, because obviously, how many sessions were you doing on average week? Would you say?
Oh, it varied greatly. Really did, you know, because I mean, sometimes.
Well, go through your diaries. Can we see a diary? Because what Dougie's said to do, you need to see these diaries because all steady. But he'll put them on the table for later, and because obviously they're quite precious and everything else, and some of them have actually fallen apart. Well, he can show you later, but we'll get.
Well, I need these because the musicians union asked me to produce my proof of what I was on sometimes, and so there's PPL. Gary.
Oh, we know about that though.
That's 68.
68. This is when he was earning a lot of money. You can see the size of the diary. You got your 62 on?
62, man. I've got a banana. I've got my toothbrush.
Have you got your glass as well?
I'm beginning to enjoy myself tonight, are you?
Yeah. This is when he first started out.
Is it? you can see I made money, can't you?
But
Things are looking good. By the time I get to 1968.
So it's 1960. This is what you talked about.
Now look, what is it saying there? Go to August. Have you got it?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
You getting there?
Yeah.
Careful.
Am I? Okay.
Look.
Last day.
Pete would be interested in that. Oh, have you seen this, Pete?
I've never seen it. No.
Well, I'm looking.
My last gig was there, look.
At East Grinstead.
Yes.
Last date with John Barry 7 was on the 24th, Friday 24th of August 1962.